In the 1920s, researchers excavated the long-lost tomb of the ancient pharaoh Tutankhamun. Infamously, many members of the expedition met mysterious ends. Their untimely deaths after disturbing the resting place of a legendary pharaoh have inspired fascination for over a century now, and fueled speculation about a supernatural curse. Some have speculated that the cause was not a curse, but a fungus, known to be deadly under the right circumstances. But there's a twist, because this deadly fungus may just be due for a redemption arc. Sorry to disappoint you, but there's no actual curse on King Tut's tomb that we know of. The rumors of a curse started because many of the people involved in the tomb excavation met untimely ends. Firstly, and most intriguingly, the financial backer of the investigation, Lord Carnarvon, died suddenly in 1923, just 1 year after the tomb was opened. The specific yet distant relationship between the sponsor and the tomb opening made it seem like Lord Carnarvon's death was a targeted smite from the pharaoh. After that, several more members of the original expedition passed away as well, all of which were attributed to divine retribution. By 1930, 10 people associated with the excavation of King Tut's tomb had died. Lord Carnarvon died of an infected mosquito bite. One of the original excavators died by suicide, another was smothered to death, and an unrelated American investor visited the tomb and died of pneumonia. It doesn't really matter to the curse narrative that some of the alleged curse effects didn't result in death, or that these events sometimes happened way after the tomb opening. One of the original excavators allegedly was injured in a vehicle crash 50 years later in 1970, and even a friend of the lead archaeologist wasn't spared. He got a gift of a mummified hand in a paperweight, and then his house burned down. If any of my friends are watching, that is a bad gift. No thank you. Those misfortunes fueled feverish speculation by many, including the likes of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The famed author of Sherlock Holmes was a big fan of the supernatural and was quoted in an article substantiating the curse theory. It's a compelling story. Random Europeans disrupting an ancient Egyptian pharaoh's resting place and getting smote by the wrath of the dead, and perhaps the gods. That's cinema. In a very Sherlock fashion, though, the truth may be much less mystical in nature and more like you missed this one crucial detail that ties it all together. Or at least some of it. Scientists have checked out the tomb themselves and found some species of a fungus called Aspergillus. Aspergillus is a genus of fungus that causes the disease aspergillosis. It's a quite common fungus, and you probably breathe some in every day with no problem. But if you're immunocompromised or breathing in a lot of it, Aspergillus can move in and make you sick. We've known about Aspergillus fungus for centuries, but aspergillosis as a disease didn't really get much medical attention until the 1980s. So at the time of the King Tut tomb excavation, doctors likely didn't even know to look for it. Any of the mysterious deaths that looked like pneumonia back then could, in fact, have been aspergillosis. While accurate death reports are a bit hard to trace, especially with all the talk of a curse, many of the King Tut curse deaths do seem to be attributed to pneumonia. The other misfortunes are probably curse confirmation bias, to be honest. Now, this evidence is circumstantial, and nobody has been able to sample Aspergillus flavus directly from the bodies of the stricken explorers. It's reasonable speculation. The fungus was found at the scene of the crime and had plausible means of carrying out the murder. But there is one more reason to point the finger at it. A second series of tomb-related deaths added further evidence to the fungus side of the debate. In 1973, scientists opened the tomb of the Polish king Casimir IV, who died in 1492. Though the dozens of scientists were all healthy before the excavation, 10 of them died shortly afterwards. In the final count, as many as 15 people who had either worked on site at the Polish king's tomb or handled the artifacts from it fell sick and died. Once again, a microbiologist went to the tomb years later and identified the presence of Aspergillus flavus. But since these findings also came well after the deaths, we still can't say for sure that the people died of aspergillosis and not something else. Plus, a lot of the people who died from the alleged King Tut's curse clearly didn't die of a fungal infection, so aspergillus is not a silver bullet explanation. The lead archaeologist lived a full life into his 60s, and you'd think he would be a prime target for a curse. Neither aspergillus nor a monarch's wrath can fully explain the series of unfortunate events. Still, it's compelling to establish that it's possible that if you go walking into a tomb that's been sealed for a while and end up dead, aspergillus may be to blame. And that's enough for the fungus's reputation to take a bit of a hit. The fungus behind the mummy's curse? Nothing good can come of that. Or can it? We'll answer that question after this quick break.
Since you watch SciShow, you're no stranger to new ideas. And this video's sponsor, Brilliant, has been cooking up a lot of new ideas. In fact, they're going all in on a new Brilliant. Now with a visual interactive personal tutor for math and coding, it's all designed to fit into your life and help everyone be a math person, from 5th graders all the way to college and beyond. We here at SciShow are so glad to have had Brilliant support for many years, and we're continuing that relationship into a new era. Click the link below or scan the QR code to get started with Brilliant's tutor for free. You can upgrade to premium to unlock all courses. And right now, SciShow viewers can save 20% off an annual subscription at brilliant.org/SciShow.
Scientists are always searching for new compounds that can be used to cure diseases, and nature is a great place to look for ideas. Lots of safe, useful drugs start out as or are inspired by natural products. Ozempic, just to name one. In addition, bacteria are constantly evolving resistance to our antibiotics, meaning we have to stay on top of creating new ones. So there are multiple reasons to keep digging into nature's bag of tricks. Researchers know that fungi especially are weird little treasure troves of exciting compounds that could potentially be used to find new drug options. Fungi, including the one found in certain ancient monarchs' tombs. Aspergillus flavus is known to produce fun little molecules called RIPs. RIP stands for ribosomally synthesized and post-translationally modified peptide. And that is a lot of words, but the name is basically just referring to how these molecules are made. RIPs are special molecules that start out just like any other protein. The ribosomes in a cell string together some amino acids. That part's normal. The next part isn't. RIPs are different from any other protein because of how they are finished. Once the peptide pops out of the ribosome, it goes through heavy modification by a separate enzyme that can add all sorts of super complicated structures. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania became interested in RIPs because this extremely diverse set of complex structures also gives them a diverse set of functions. Among those functions are plenty that are known to act on human biology. So the scientists decided to go digging for something useful. Based on previously published literature, the scientists at UPenn decided to comb through a few different Aspergillus species, looking for one that would be a good candidate for finding new, useful RIPs. Using genomic tools, the researchers scanned for areas of the Aspergillus genomes that might give rise to RIPs. Out of the 12 species they looked at, Aspergillus flavus turned out to be one of the most promising. When they looked deeper at the A. flavus genome, the team found 4 genes that were likely to code for a peptide that would turn into a RIP. The scientists took those 4 new RIPs and named them asparagomycins, after the fungus they found them in. Originally, the researchers were hoping to find new antimicrobials to help with that antibiotic resistance problem. Well, unfortunately, the asparagomycins didn't show any antimicrobial behavior. They did show some anti-cancer activity. 2 of the 4 RIPs had some anti-leukemia power, basically as is. When the scientists mixed those asparagomycins with leukemia cell lines, the cancer cells stopped growing. And another one of the RIPs showed anti-leukemia activity when mixed with a fatty molecule, with comparable effectiveness in the lab to FDA-approved chemotherapy drugs. They needed to add that fatty component into the mix to prevent the RIP from getting trashed by the cell. Without that, the asparagomycin couldn't get into the proper part of the cell to do its work as efficiently. Interestingly, these asparagomycins seemed to be specific to stopping leukemia. When the RIPs were mixed with other types of cancer cells, nothing happened. And that's actually a good thing. That means it can be a promising candidate for developing future leukemia treatments. You actually don't want your chemotherapy to have a ton of broad effects. You want it to kill what you sent it in there to kill, and nothing else. Figuring out why RIPs work the way they do can be pretty difficult, but the researchers think that they most likely flex their anti-cancer abilities by preventing the cancer cells from dividing. Still, this is the very early stages of this research, and there are likely even more RIPs yet to be discovered. The anti-cancer properties of these RIPs and their safety profile for humans still need to go through a ton of investigation before they can make their way to real-life patients. At the end of the day, connecting King Tut to this research team's work was probably mostly a stroke of genius on the part of the university's media team, and we respect the hustle. Still, it's very cool that this deadly fungus, maybe responsible for one of history's most infamous curses, could be entering its redemption arc. It's a reminder that the world is complicated, and sometimes the same thing can be both good and bad. But we're excited to see what comes from the good.